Give me a sense to describe Congress.
Extremely incompetent and unworthy of for the American people.
Dysfunctional and in disarray.
Gridlocked. Not representative of America.
Quit.
Atrophying.
Performers, not legislators.
The worst part of the United States government at any level.
This group of Generation Z voters' overwhelmingly negative view of Congress is, according to polls, in line with that of their peers. 53% of voting age members of Gen Z say they've got very little trust in Congress, part of a broader pattern, the generation's waning faith in American institutions. In many ways, their frustration with Capitol Hill, not that dissimilar to millennial or baby boomer counterparts, most of it stemming from partisan politics.
It just infuriates me how they govern. Things should be passed like within a few pages. There shouldn't be hundreds of pages that we try to ram through just to put a bunch of BS together.
Congress won't pass common sense bills that are introduced by the other side, just so that the other side doesn't get a win, even when those bills would be good for the country. That's depressing.
It's actually a pretty remarkably sharp take on how Congress often operates. Joining our panel now, the moderator of that focus group, pollster communications strategist Frank Luntz. Frank, good morning. Wonderful to have you back.
Good morning. The Times, New York Times has been doing this great series on these Gen Z voters, why they feel the way that they do, and that's an example that we shouldn't forget about what's happening in Congress. In the end, all of our attention has been on the presidential race. The Democrats are within striking distance of taking control of the House, and the Republicans are more likely than not to take control of the Senate. This stuff matters, and the same kind of negativity, the same kind of disappointment, and even anger exists in these lower offices, and it makes me concerned what happens after the election. Can they come together? Can they believe that the system actually works?
Yeah, well, that's exactly kind of what I wanted to hit on here with you, because when we hear them talk about Congress, and again, Congress's approval rating is historically low. People tend to like their member, but are frustrated with the whole place. But this sort of basic lack of trust in our institutions is something that kind of goes through, it's a thread that ties it all together. How do you look at that in the context of the presidential race, the race for Congress, all of it?
I can accept a lack of trust. What I cannot accept and what we should not accept is the belief that government is actually against us, that they're hostile to us, that they're stealing from us. In the end, a healthy skepticism is good in a democracy, but not this belief that they're out to hurt us. And another belief, which is that if they didn't exist at all, we'd actually be better off. There's some people in Washington on both sides that want to tear the entire institution down, don't care if it doesn't function, don't care if relief aid isn't given, for example. That's a real problem, because it's like they hate the democratic institutions that keep us together.
Frank, I want to ask you about young men in particular, because you're out there conducting focus groups like this one. John Della Volpe, who was a Biden pollster but is also polls for Harvard, young people in particular, wrote this interesting piece for the New York Times talking about young men. And he says this: today's young men are lonelier than ever, have inherited a world rife with skepticism toward the institutions designed to promote and defend American ideals, like we were just talking about. Men under 30, nearly twice as likely to be single as women their age. Gen Z men less likely to enroll in college or the workforce than previous generations. They have higher rates of suicide. They're less likely than their female peers to receive treatment for mental health. Mr. Trump has tapped these anxieties by weaving a hypermasculine message of strength and defiance into his broader narrative that undermines confidence in democratic institutions, and it's working. Do you agree with him? Is it working?
To a great degree, yes, but let's look at the whole picture. Young women think that Kamala Harris is their hero, that she represents what they want to be at some point in their lifetime, and her ads are completely gender-driven. Trump is doing exactly the same thing on the male side. It's a mirror image of each other. She's doing it in a more positive way, Trump's doing it in a more negative way, but they're doing the same thing. They're dividing the country by gender. You can see it in her ads, in his ads, and I'm not sure that that's the way to go, particularly as we end this campaign. We need to find ways that you and I agree with each other rather than reasons for us to hate each other.
I appreciate that optimistic framing, but I will say in these final 2 weeks, often everyone's actually doing the opposite.
Exactly.
Frank, I want to know what your perspective is on. Obviously, we're in the final weeks here. we're starting to get actual numbers in terms of early vote. It goes a little bit beyond the polling now. We have more to work with in terms of understanding where the electorate is, what's going to happen. A lot of my sources feel like the momentum is actually with Trump at this moment, and that is potentially putting him on track to win on election night, perhaps in a bigger way than the very close polling would suggest. What do you think? What do you think about where we are right now?
I can't call it. And
I'm not asking you to call it. I'm just asking you to help us understand, like, where is that momentum going?
It is heading towards Trump. But what's interesting is that with Harris focused on why she should be elected president, that's when her numbers grew. She's had the best 60 days of any presidential candidate in modern history. And then the moment that she turned anti-Trump and focused on him and said, don't vote for me, vote against him, that's when everything froze. And the fact is, Donald Trump is defined. He's not gaining, he's not losing, he is who he is, and his vote is where it is. She is less well defined, and if she continues just to define this race as vote against Trump, she's going to stay where she is now, and she may lose.
All right, Frank Luntz, thanks very much for joining us this
Thanks
morning.
for having
I really
me.
appreciate it.